For everyone who doesn't know Stuart has a long career at the intersection of travel and technology, really the start of travel on the web. Stuart was the founder of Expedia Canada and CMO of Expedia.com in Seattle. He started the Mesh Conference. He's currently the VP and GM for Points Travel, and he's invested in a bunch of travel companies, including Sherpa. He sits on Sherpa's board. Very active member of Sherpa's board. And tonight he's representing Points. So Points provides loyalty solutions for many of the world's leading airlines and travel companies, including United, Southwest, Emirates, Lufthansa, ANA Japan, Singapore Airlines, Marriott, and Hilton. I should have made a shorter list, but almost everybody. And yeah, we're super excited to have you here tonight, Stuart.
That's great, Max. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly now, Stu.
Great, good. So yeah, no, it's great to be here, and it's good to see you twice in one day, including what's up in front of my house a few hours ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm delivering mail on the side. It's a good time. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who's been so engaged on the side panel. I'm going to try and bring in questions from the floor, but I do want to start with a question that I found interesting input from you on. I know you were GM of Expedia.ca during 9/11, yeah. Which until now has been the largest disruption in air travel that we had seen. What have you drawn from that experience now that you're GM of Points Travel, and what do you think about when you look back to that experience?
Great to be here and talk to everybody tonight. It's funny. This is a Toronto audience, although with a bunch of people from around the world here. I will never forget on September the 11th, driving on the Gardiner, I heard on the radio about the first airplane that hit the first tower. Obviously, if you were in New York, you experienced it differently. But for me, it was like, wow, that's interesting. I wonder what happened there. And then by the time we got to the office, Expedia Canada, very early days, not a lot of people. The TV was on, and I saw the second plane hit. And I just said, okay, guys, we got to get to work. And for the next, probably 7 days anyway, on both sides of the border and around the world, it was just really trying to take care of travelers and trying to figure out where things were going to go. September 11th was a major event, but it was actually a regional event. It's easy to forget that. It was not a global event. And although it was not a global event, the thing that I think I took away the most from that I remember and that we've been putting into place and trying to remind each other of at Points today is that there is opportunity in adversity. And I know that it sounds crazy. A lot of people are really, really struggling, and I don't want to downplay that, but there are opportunities. So I'll give you a couple of examples. The best example that I'll give from a Points perspective was prior to September 11th, the business at Points was primarily about what some people might remember as points.com, which is something that still exists, which was basically, if you had this kind of points, you wanted to change it into that kind of points, you would go in there, and it was a consumer, was a consumer proposition. Coming out of after September 11th, Points really sort of refocused and pivoted, retrenched into the loyalty currency retailing business, and working with loyalty programs around the world to help engagement and to help members make better utility of miles. And so, that was a fundamental change. Expedia, such as it exists today, probably wouldn't be the same if it hadn't have been for September 11th, because it actually enabled what ultimately became the merchant model or the prepaid hotel model, which enabled OTAs around the world to sort of change their margin profile. Now, that being said, if you're a hotelier, you might have a different perspective on that, but it also drove a lot of traffic and continues to be a meaningful source of revenue for hotels around the world. So, and we've talked about this too, Max. I really do believe that there is opportunity, and you might not see it right now, but things that didn't feel like they were possible at all 6 or 8 weeks ago are suddenly possible today. And things that no one would ever consider even talking to you about, they're not only prepared to talk to you about it today, but it's actually something that could happen that quickly and have long-term positive, I believe, over time impacting the category.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the reasons that weeks feel like years now, is that we've kind of got years worth of news every week, and there's all kinds of interesting new stuff. Yeah, and to that point, looking a little bit forward now, maybe with your loyalty hat on, I know a lot of people are saying that, looking forward, it's likely travel is going to be a lot more transactional. Same things people say every time we're going into a dip. What do you think the future looks like for loyalty? What are you preparing for?
Well, it's funny. It's not just what we're preparing for loyalty, but it's actually what we're seeing today. There's a lot of concern in the industry about, do we want to be promoting anything today? Do we want to just be really kind of quiet because of everything that's going on? But there are meaningful business issues at play. Obviously, there's needing to drive revenue. The other one is needing to drive engagement with members and with travelers. And so loyalty is going to be probably as important, if not more important, when all this is said and done. Because against both of those things, trying to drive preference, drive engagement, and drive revenue, loyalty is one of the absolute strongest factors. And what we're seeing today, we actually just issued a white paper a few weeks ago, which you can find at points.com and look for it there, that shows that not only is promotion happening today in the loyalty space to try and sort of drive engagement and drive revenue today, it's actually being more successful now than it had been previously, or at least as successful as it had been previously. So I think what we're seeing is that people are still dreaming about travel. People are still wanting to engage with travel. They don't think that travel is done. And although they might not be looking to make a trip today, the idea of maybe taking advantage of the opportunity to purchase loyalty points that they want to use down the road, or to look at something that ultimately is going to drive some kind of engagement and reminder, is working as well as it ever has. And so I think that when you think about loyalty as sort of two things, the first one being driving preference and driving engagement, and the other one being driving revenue in and of itself, loyalty is going to be even more important, not just in the future, but is actually more important now.
Very cool. And we've actually had a good question from the floor here from Khaled. He's asking, he thinks that clients are going to want to cash in their loyalty points for whatever it is coming out of this, and that might have an effect on travel suppliers and anyone who's selling travel. What do you think about that?
I think that there's definitely something to that. I know that loyalty players are seeing a huge uptick in redemptions for merchandise, because people are looking to get stuff and have it delivered to their home. So, there is that. But when you look out into the future from a redemptions perspective, if people are looking to travel, and perhaps they've had personal negative financial impacts or whatnot, but they still have some currency that they could potentially use against that, I think it's completely reasonable to think that from a redemption perspective, be that for hotel or car or airline or tour for that matter, that currency might actually be tapped into. In fact, when I'm talking to our suppliers, the people that provide us with the inventory that we sell for both earn and redeem through white label relationships with global loyalty players, what our suppliers are telling us is that loyalty, the space where members are either redeeming points or are earning points with the purchase of a booking, is one of the small bright spots that they're seeing right now, where there remains demand. And I think that's just going to improve. Now, I mean, we're seeing sort of a bit of an uptick coming out of Asia. We're seeing a bit of an uptick in short stay drive destinations, but I think it's very, very early days. But I do believe that when people have one type of currency and maybe less of another, that they're going to be doing more to avail themselves of what that can offer to them.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Another interesting question quickly from the floor. We've heard a lot of tonight already about safety for infection, people having to build trust before wanting to travel again. Do you think that loyalty plays into that at all?
I think that loyalty loyalty is essentially about trust. I mean, loyalty is about preference. It's also about driving more revenue, both in and of itself and into and to a given carrier or hotel chain or whatnot. And so, I mean, I think ultimately there's a unique opportunity within loyalty to find to reach out to the highest propensity members, the highest propensity, the highest value travelers, and deliver a quality message to them that is going to support their desire to return to travel and to do so safely. You know, there's no doubt that that it is going to be tougher. There is no doubt that when I say tougher, I mean to sort of clear that bar in terms of expectations for health and safety. But what loyalty does is it gives a built-in incentive for people to remain loyal to a specific provider, and also allows, through data science and messaging, to deliver a message out to the highest value travelers to say, here's what we're doing to support you and to make sure that you're safe. Because at the end of the day, and Malia, I think was very accurate with this, it does start with health and safety. People have to feel safe on the road. We saw that after 9/11. Once people saw that they could get on a plane again and they weren't, you know, and the risk had gone back to being extraordinarily low, we saw a huge demand starting to come out of the gate. Now, admittedly, this is a much different situation than that was, but it really does come down to this sense of safety and security, and the industry in total is going to have to rise to that. But through loyalty, you already have the opportunity to talk to people who are already engaged with you, to continue to drive that engagement, and to deliver a message to them, to those most important members, in a way that is both kind of persuasive and tailored.
Yeah, I think people often forget that loyalty is two sides. You know, there's a customer being loyalty, but there's also rewarding loyalty on the other side, making that a personal connection. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that, and then the ability to use data science to find out these high propensity travelers and deliver the right message to them, and frankly, deliver the right offer to them to try and encourage them to do stuff, you know, to either be that to make a booking and potentially top up because they need a few miles, they can make a redemption, they're going to buy those miles, or you know, potentially to buy miles today for a rainy day in the future, or potentially to make a hotel reservation as we offer. But everything we're doing is on a non-refundable basis today. So these kind of core messages of book with confidence, and having flexibility are really, really important across the board. And I think that the industry is just going to have to kind of come to terms with how they don't just deliver that extra sense of health and safety, but that they're able to message it appropriately and then kind of clear that bar that they've set.
Absolutely. I'm going to play off of a question that AJ's got. We've got time for about one more question. I really appreciate all the questions coming from the floor. These are great. So AJ's asking, like, with your experience in the OTA market and with, you know, travel sales generally, you know, how is anyone gonna differentiate themselves selling travel right now if they're not selling their own inventory?
I think a lot of it has to do with what I was saying before, which is using data science. I mean, I'm in a strong position because, you know, on the loyalty side, we have access to profiles and really kind of a deeper understanding, and to deliver the right offer to the right person at the right time with the right type of incentive. I think that if you were to, I think it would be very hard to start a new reseller of travel today. Not least of which is that I don't know the suppliers would be all that excited about giving you access to inventory, because it's so crispy out there from a credit perspective. So, you know, I think that in many ways that gives a bit of a leg up to the folks that are already in the industry, that are already established. And I think there's also going to be a lot kind of proven by how people are treating their customers today. What are they doing in terms of providing, for instance, if they're issuing vouchers, that the vouchers are valid for a long period of time and stuff like that, to try and sort of demonstrate that they're people that you want to do business with. But I think it would be really tough to start something right now. And I also think that some of the other emerging models are likely to struggle quite a bit. I think Meta is going to struggle. They were already struggling. I think it's going to struggle hugely now. And I also I wonder about Cruise, and some of the emerging models about reselling Cruise online being sort of next generation there.
Really interesting. And actually, we've got a few questions about. Just to finish it off, this has the potential to be a very short answer. We got questions about airlines and about Cruise. I'm just going to ask, coming out of this, would you rather be at an airline or with a cruise company coming out of this?
Airline to the power of 10 billion, not least of which because I'm likely to get government subsidy and support, whereas the cruise lines are extraordinarily unlikely to do that because they're really offshore entities who don't pay taxes in the primary source markets. So they're not to mention all of the other challenges around cruise right now. Just from a pure finance perspective, I think airlines are in a much better position.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it looks like the chat is agreeing with you to an extent. We got a couple of people in there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stuart. Thank you so much to everyone who put a question in. I tried to draw from what was coming from the floor, and I think it led to a really interesting discussion here.